Think back to your very first memory. Take a second. Picture it. Chances are it starts around age 3 or 4. Maybe a birthday, a scraped knee, a dog you once had. But before that age, there's almost nothing. No memory of learning to walk. No memory of your first word. No memory of the thousands of hours someone spent holding you, feeding you, keeping you alive. So what happened to those years? The honest answer isn't that you forgot them. It's stranger than that. This gap has a name. Scientists call it infantile amnesia, and it isn't a flaw in your memory. It's a universal feature of being human. Nearly everyone experiences it. Across every culture researchers have studied. Here's the part that should surprise you. Babies can absolutely form memories. Studies on infants as young as 6 months show they can recognize faces, remember routines, and respond to familiar voices weeks later. So the memories are there, somewhere. The question is why almost none of them survive into adulthood. For decades, the leading suspect was language. The idea was simple. Without words, you can't encode an experience into a story you can later retrieve. But that explanation didn't hold up. Psychologist Carole Peterson has spent years studying children's earliest memories, tracking the same kids over time. Her research found that toddlers as young as 2 or 3 could describe events from before they had full language for them. Yet years later, many of those same memories had vanished anyway. Language wasn't the missing ingredient, so researchers looked somewhere else entirely, inside the brain itself. There's a structure called the hippocampus. Think of it as the brain's filing system. It's responsible for taking a short-term experience and converting it into a long-term memory you can retrieve later. In early childhood, that filing system is still under construction. Neuroscientist Paul Frankland ran a series of studies using mice and found that the rate at which new brain cells are produced in the hippocampus during early life is unusually high, and that this rapid neuron growth seems to interfere with the stability of memories formed during that same window. In other words, your brain wasn't failing to save those memories. It may have been overwriting them constantly as part of normal development. The same explosive growth that built your capacity to think, speak, and reason may have erased the very experiences happening during that growth. There's a deeper twist here, and it reframes the whole question. This isn't a malfunction. It looks more like a trade. A brain that's wiring itself for language, walking, and reasoning for the very first time may simply not have the structural stability yet to hold on to specific episodic memories. There's another layer to this that makes it even stranger. The exact age your earliest memory clusters around isn't fixed across all of humanity. It shifts depending on where you grew up. Researchers comparing memory recall across different cultures have found that people from cultures that emphasize storytelling, detailed conversation about the past, and individual experience tend to report earlier first memories than people from cultures that emphasize collective experience and group identity over individual narrative. That detail matters enormously. If infantile amnesia were purely a hardware limitation, fixed by neurons and brain structure alone, the age should be identical everywhere. It isn't, which means how often a memory gets revisited, retold, and reinforced by the people around you in early childhood might determine whether it survives at all. A memory that gets talked about becomes more likely to stick. A memory that happens once, in silence, with no one ever mentioning it again, is far more likely to dissolve back into the construction process happening in your brain. So in a strange way, some of your earliest memories may have survived not because your brain randomly chose to keep them, but because somebody kept bringing them up. A parent retelling the story of the day you were born. A photo album flipped through one too many times. The memory didn't just happen to you, it was kept alive by repetition, by other people, often without anyone realizing that's what they were doing. You weren't designed to remember those years. You were designed to build the foundation that everything afterward would be remembered on, which means the years you can't recall weren't lost time. They were construction time, and the memory loss doesn't end as cleanly as you'd think either. Most adults' earliest memories cluster around 3.5 years old, but the boundary keeps shifting throughout childhood. Children interviewed about events from their early years tend to lose access to more and more of those memories as they get older, even ones they could describe perfectly a few years earlier. The amnesia isn't a single wall at age 3. It's a slow fade that's